Shall we start?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, members. Hope everyone is well in this COVID-19 pandemic. I, Ankit Shrimal, on behalf of GST Corner, welcome all the professionals across the India in today's webinar. Let me start with a short brief about today's webinar, that is practical issue and documentation required under GST for TDS and TDS, TCS and e-commerce transactions. I would like to introduce today's webinar speaker, CA Archana Jain ma'am. She is guest faculty at ICAI, FICCI, NSCIN for GST, and ICAI UAE VET. Visiting faculty at PhD Chambers, guest faculty at NIFT Delhi, and also visiting faculty of NSCIN under the aegis of NIRC. Now, I invited Madam to present the webinar and enlighten us with their knowledge and practical approach while doing GST, TDS, TCS, and e-commerce transaction. Over to you, ma'am.
May I start?
Yeah, ma'am, sure.
Thank you so much, Ankit ji, for your humble opening remarks and my profile, sharing my humble profile. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to GST Corner for giving me this wonderful opportunity so that I can be again be on this platform and can share my knowledge with all the participants. And I welcome all the participants on this podium, on this webinar for the topic for the day is presentation on GST, TDS, TCS and e-commerce scenario. So really a big kudos to all the organizers who are taking such a wonderful initiative, and they are coming out with new topics, and I should say the topics which are not that much talked about, and that's the reason we have such a huge participation also, despite the fact that today being a working day and mid of the day, but still we are having large number of participants. So the all credit goes to the organizers and the wonderful team that is working behind the curtains, I should say. So, okay, let's start. GST, TDS, TCS, and e-commerce. And somehow I think this month of September is always being very dearer or favorite for the GST Council also, because if I remember correctly, the provisions of TDS was again initiated, or it was made effective with effect from 1st of October 2018. And this year also, we are just waiting for the new e-invoicing pattern to be again started off or kicking off on 1st of October 2020. So I don't know somehow, but they have this favoritism for initiating something new, that too in the middle of the year. So let's start and let's hope that everything goes well, and whatever they have decided for e-invoicing also should also be rolled out very smoothly, and not as smooth as GST, but yes, it should be rolled out smoothly so that we don't have to bear another hiccup of the technical glitches or another hiccup from the portal end of portal side. So I'll just need, can I just have 1 minute from the organizers? Can I just put on some questions to the participants, and will they be able to reply me back on the chat box, or it is not enabled as of now?
Yes, ma'am, it can be enabled.
It can be enabled. Okay.
Yes.
So, and I hope the language has to be mix of both, or more of English or more of Hindi. Can you please
So
brief me
both,
out that also?
so more or English and less Hindi, but it should be mixed up. It's mixed.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. So it
Okay.
has to be somewhere around English, but more of English.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what we all understand, or what is our take on TDS as of now? If I talk, like we are in 2020, this provision was well started in 2018 with effect from 31st, with effect from 1st of October 2018, wide notification number 50/2018, because earlier it was notified by some other notification, then again it was deferred for starting from 1st of April, then again it was deferred for another couple of months, and then finally it was started on 1st of October. So what is our basic experience up to now under this provision of TDS? We all are aware that who all have to deduct TDS? Yes or no? Okay. So people are saying me, no, we are not aware. And as of now, yes and no, both are of, what should I say, 50-50? Only a few notified person, perfectly. Only a few notified person, and that too belonging to government sector. TDS tax deducted at source. TDS has to be deducted by the government organizations or notified class of person as notified under section 51. So we will be coming on the provisions now. Let's start. So these are the legal provisions or the content that we will be covering up in today's webinar. Let me just hide the videos and everything so that my screen is not bad. Okay, so TDS is one way of collection based on certain percentage, and we all know the percentage is 1%, CGST, 1% SGST, and 2% IGST. However, as per decision that we have already dealt, it was deferred, and then finally with notification number 50/2018, it was launched that yes, it will be made effective with effect from 1st of October 2018. On whom TDS at source is applicable. So very limited applicability, but yes, it is applicable on department or establishment of central government or state government or local authority or government agencies. And all these words are defined under the statute. And some specific class of person or category of person or some persons or such persons, we know person has been defined as may be notified by the government on the recommendation of the council. PSUs were initially a part of this definition, and they had the liability to deduct TDS. Then further, as time passed, and then wide notification that we will be discussing over here, somewhere in I think 73 or 75, wide that notification, they have exempted that yes, now there will not be any applicability of TDS on PSUs. So as of now, the liability to deduct TDS is on departmental establishment, department or departmental establishment of central government, state government, or local authorities or government agencies. And we all know local authorities and all these words are being defined under GST statute also. But in case they are not defined, then we have to refer to the specific provisions where they had been defined. So applicability of TDS is rate 1% C plus 1% S or 2% IGST. When TDS is applicable, so there is a threshold. So we have to understand how that threshold has to be calculated and how this threshold has to be visualized. I mean, it has to be visualized on a transaction basis. So if the supplier's total supply or total such supply, not the invoice value, it is not asking for the invoice value, it is saying the total of such supply under a contract exceeds the invoice value, may be a different thing, but here you have to see the total value or total consideration for that supply under that contract exceeds 2,50,000 rupees. That means up to 2,50,000 there will be no liability for TDS, but once it exceeds 2,50,000, so 2,50,001 rupee, then only the liability for TDS will be applicable. And this value should not include any kind of taxes or any kind of what we say central taxes, state taxes, IGST or cess that is levied under this act, and this is also prescribed under section 15 of CGST Act. The following persons were notified by this notification number 33/2017, by which it was made applicable or it was made effective, but the date, I mean the notification was notified, but the applicability was again deferred, and that final application was there by notification number 50/2018 only. So initially, wide notification number 33/2017, they have notified that these following category of the persons or they will be liable for the TDS deduction, and they were like any authority or a board or any body set up by the act of parliament or state legislature or establishment of any government establishment of any government means this shareholding has to be taken care of. So 51% or more participation by way of equity or control to carry out any function has to be in the hands of government. Then it will be sufficing the definition to fall under the definition of establishment of any government. Then society established by the central government or state government or local authorities under the Societies Registration Act 1860. Then PSUs. Initially, by this notification, PSUs were a part of notified list, but then further they have excluded with this from this notified list by notification number 61 and notification number 73. So we have to see that these two notification had made this exclusion, or they had made the carving out of this this provision that yes, now no more PSUs will be liable for the TDS provisions. So if I say summary, TDS till now what we have seen is that deductor, who all are the deductors, there is a specified list of the deductors, and these person will be they had been notified by notification, and these person will be liable for the deduction of TDS. Then cutoff, when the TDS will be invoked or the liability for TDS will be invoked, there is a cutoff, and that cutoff is more than 2,50,000 total consideration for such supply. So up to 2,50,000, it is like again a question of ambiguity whether up to 2,50,000, I mean the amount of equal to 2,50,000 has to be included or not, because the law of the wordings of the law are that exceeds 2,50,000. It is mentioned in the act only that it has to be exceeding 2,50,000. So if it exactly the words are exceeds, if you see the words written in section, they are saying exceeds 2,50,000. So up to 2,50,000, it is not in the ambit of TDS. Once it exceeds 2,50,000, it will fall under the ambit of TDS. Then rate 1%, 1% or 2% as a consolidated rate. When TDS will be deducted, we have seen these things. Very one important thing is the place of supply is really, really important in this aspect, because when the location of the supplier, like who will be supplying goods or services or both, and the place of supply, they are like in the same in the state where the register is not in sync with the provision, because as per the law also, the recipient's place of the recipient registered place and the place of supply of the transaction has to be in the same state, then only you are eligible for the credit of the same. That we have seen in the case of ISDs also, and otherwise also we have seen this provision that even in case of IGST also, your place of registration and the place of supply has to be the same state, then only you are eligible for the credit. So on the same line, this provision also has been laid out, and that's why I've given an example also where the location of the supplier and the place of supply is in, let's say, Chandigarh, and the recipient is also registered in Chandigarh, then it is an intrastate. Similarly, when the location of the supplier is in Chandigarh and the place of supply is in Delhi, and the recipient is also in Delhi, then it will be an interstate and 2% will be leviable. But in such scenario, let's say location of the supplier is Chandigarh, place of supply is Delhi, but the registered place for the recipient is not the place of supply, that is to say not Delhi, then in that case TDS liability cannot be there, because whatever you will be deducting and you will be depositing to the government, he will not be eligible to take the credit for the same. So that's why, to overcome that anomaly, they have carved out this provision that place of supply and the registered place of the recipient has to be in the manner that he is eligible for the credit. I hope till now so far so good. In case anybody is finding it difficult to understand, so can you just give me a quick back that I hope till now whatever we have dealt in last 10-15 minutes, 10 minutes or so is going fine with you all.
Yes, ma'am, going fine.
Okay, thank you. So when no TDS will be deducted, of all, when the taxable value is not exceeding 2,50,000. So as per my opinion, up to 2,50,000, there is no liability for TDS. When there is more than one contract and each contract for the supply of goods or services or both is not exceeding 2,50,000, let's say I may have entered into a contract with some kind of government department, and the valuation of those two different contracts is, let's say, which I have also mentioned in my example also, let's say 2,20,000 and 2,10,000 or less than 2,50,000. So in totality, it is exceeding 2,50,000, but as we have said, it is not the invoice value. It has to be taken care that you have to see that when you are just putting it across and when you are making the payment, then you don't have to see as a consolidated. You have to see on the invoice level basis that whether it is crossing the threshold or no. So in our example, we have seen that we have entered into two contracts. So in totality, it is exceeding 2,50,000. But if I talk about invoice-wise details, so they are not crossing 2,50,000. In that scenario, there will be no tax liability, or there will be no liability for TDS to be deducted, because joint value is more than 2,50,000, but individual payment which you are making on a particular invoice is not exceeding 2,50,000. So when there is a common contract for taxable supply as well as an exempt supply, in that case also you have to calculate whether the value for the taxable supply is exceeding 2,50,000 or not, because on exempt supply there is no liability for TDS. So, and goods and services which are exempted under GST Act, so you don't have to deduct any TDS, because on it is leviable only on taxable supplies and not on exempt supplies. Where the location of the supplier and the place of supply is in state or union territory, which is different from the state or union territory of the deductor, is registered. So in that case also there will be no TDS liability. Example we will be looking at into is that where the location of the supplier is Chandigarh and the place of supply is Chandigarh, but the recipient is registered in Delhi. So in normal scenario, what we can say that, okay, your recipient is registered in Delhi and my place of supply is in Chandigarh and I am in Chandigarh, so it will be an intrastate supply. But in that scenario, because POS rule, example can be like immovable property can be situated in Chandigarh only, and that has been rented out to, let's say, government department. So in that scenario, because section 12 says that you have to decide a specific provision in relation to immovable property. So it will be treated as, because immovable property and the supplier, they both are in the same state, so it will be an intrastate. But because POS is falling in some different states, so I will not be able to take the credit for the same. And in such scenario, the person who is registered in Delhi will not be able to take the benefit of the credit. So in this scenario, even taking into that ground only or taking into that basis only, there will be no TDS liability in such kind of transaction. We have to be very cautious while deciding whether TDS is applicable, despite that, yes, threshold has been crossed and other things has been met out, but still the one major litmus test will be that you have to see where the location of supplier is, or where the place of supply is falling, and where the location of the registered recipient is. So in that scenario, you have to map all these permutation and combination, then only you will be able to decide whether TDS is liable to be deducted or not. All activities or transactions specified in Schedule 3, because there are no supply. So again, no supply, non-GST supply, exempt supply, irrespective of the value, you don't have to deduct the TDS. But the payment relates to the tax invoice that has been issued before this provision was made applicable, that is before 1st of October 2018. So in that case also, there will be no liability for TDS. Where any amount was paid as advance prior to that amount, that period, and tax invoice has been issued after the applicability of the law. So in that case, the provision will be applicable only to the advance, to the extent advance payment made before. I mean, there will be no no application of this provision for the payment made before the cutoff date or before the implementing date. Whatever has been paid before the date of implementation will be out of this purview. Where the tax is to be paid on reverse charge by the recipient, again, because RCM is applicable, so I am the one who will be liable to pay the taxes, so there is no requirement for the TDS to be deducted. So wherever there will be an RCM implication, in that scenario also there will be no liability to deduct the taxes or deduct the TDS. where the payment is made to an unregistered supplier. So again, because unregistered supplier is involved, so in that case also you don't have to deduct any kind of TDS, because he will not be able to take the claim for the same because he is not registered person. So how deductee can take the benefit of TDS? Like, let's say my TDS has been deducted. Now, how can I avail the benefit? And this has been really a very painful point for many of those persons, because they're saying our TDS has been deducted. We are not able to claim, or the portal is not yet showing, the other party has not yet filed the returns, and even few people are not even aware that yes, in order to avail the TDS that has been deducted, you need to do something. You need to go and accept on the portal whatever the amount you think that has to be uploaded by the other party who has deducted the TDS. You have to go on the TDS portal and you have to accept that transaction. On acceptance and on submission of the form, then only that will be reflected in your credit ledger. Then major question comes at times is, like, we have huge accumulation and we are not able to utilize the amount that is being reflected in our cash balance, so cash ledger. So what to do next? So in that scenario, you will be eligible to claim the refund of excess amount lying in your cash ledger as per the provision applicable under section 54 of the CGST Act, that is the refund provision. So in that case, in case you have, let's say, accumulated unutilized cash balance, and you are also aware that yes, this amount will not be used or utilized in the near future also, so instead of blocking on the cash ledger, what you can opt is that you can opt for the refund mechanism under section 54 defined under CGST Act. So you have to log into the portal, go to the option services and select list will display, select TDS, TCS. Both the list will be displayed on the screen. Like I have just given an example of the screen. You have to select the financial year, respective month, because month-wise return has to be uploaded. Let's say I have deducted your TDS in the month of, let's say, in the month of August. So within 10 days of from the end of the month, I have to submit the amount in the on the portal. So whatever amount has been deducted in the month of August has to be submitted on or before 10th of the next month, that is on or before of the 10th of the September. And the applicable return is GSTR 7. So there is a mandate requirement that whosoever is deducting, he has to file the return. And after filing the return, there was a mandate requirement under the provision of the law that yes, there has to be a issuance of certificate, TDS certificate, within 5 days from the submission of the taxes to the government on the portal, but that has yet not been notified, because that has to be notified by the Amendment Act 2020, and this provision has not yet been notified. That means the provision for the this TDS certificate is yet not notified on the portal. So then 4 tables will be displayed, like TDS and TCS, they both will be displayed, like TDS.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, your voice is not audible.
After 1 minute, it will show ready to file. Finally, file TDS or TCS received return for taking credit. Once before filing of this return, that will not be auto-populated in your cash ledger. Click on file, portal will ask to verify through EVC or DSC as the case may be. TDS credit will come cash balance, or the cash balance that will be appearing post your filing of your TDS return. There is no such part that you have to utilize this for particular provision only. It is a free money and you can utilize as per your convenience or as per your requirement on the portal. And in case, as I have told you, in case you are not able to utilize the same, what you can do is you can go and file the refund for the same under section 54. And now comes the provision. What will be the liability deducted when advance is received or advance is paid to a supplier on or after 1st of October 2018 only, and not before that. Any advance paid before that will not be in the ambit of this provision. No tax shall be deducted where any amount paid in advance prior to this amount and the tax invoice has been issued on or after 1st of October 2018 to the extent advance payment. Let's say I have raised an invoice of 1 lakh, I have raised an invoice of 5 lakh rupees. But out of those 5 lakh, I have already received 3 lakh rupees. So the tax applicability will not be on those 3 lakh rupees. Now the amount, whatever amount is residued or is received after the 1st October 2018 will only be prone to the provisions of this provision, otherwise not. So these were the basic provisions pertaining to TDS, where the transactions are with the government authorities or some government organizations or department or local authorities. And in that scenario, what all things has to be done, like the TDS will be applicable, the return has to be filed, you have to go and file the return, you have to accept whatever the thing has been displayed on your portal. On acceptance, then it will be reflected in your cash ledger, and then you can utilize the same or you can go for the refund mechanism. So this was the whole flow of the transaction, that how you have to perceive the same. So now there arise few questions also, which I have tried to take care, so that in with these FAQs, I think if in case you have similar kind of situation or you are facing similar kind of your situation in your business, so you will be able to tackle the same also. So let's say the first FAQ says Municipal Corporation of Delhi, because it's a governmental organization, has ordered supply of taxable goods to a supplier registered in Chandigarh for supply in Chandigarh. See, you have to see location of the supplier, Chandigarh, place of supply is Chandigarh. In this transaction, the liability or to deduct TDS will be there or no? See, if I say, if I have not given you the answer, if the answer was not there, then you have to just think on, I am sitting in Delhi, but the place of supply is Chandigarh and the location of the supplier is also in Chandigarh. So he will be raising an invoice of intrastate. And because that CGST and SGST belong to some other state where I am not registered, so in other scenarios also, I will not be able to take the credit for the same. And same provision are applicable here also. And taking into consideration on the same line, so in this scenario also, because I will not be able to take the credit, so the TDS will also not be deducted. So no tax shall be deducted when the location of the supplier and the place of supply, I mean location of the supplier and the place of supply is in the state where the recipient is not located. In case, let's say in this given example only, which I have mentioned in my next example, sorry, I have not mentioned here. Let's say if the place of supply would have been Delhi only, then in that scenario, TDS would have been applicable. But because here the place of supply is different from the state where recipient is registered, so there will not be any applicability of TDS. So here the location of the supply is Chandigarh, place of supply is Chandigarh, and the recipient, that's why I've highlighted in red color, recipient is registered in Delhi. So you will not be able to claim any kind of credit that has been deducted or that has been paid on an intrastate transaction where I am not registered. So in that scenario, because of lack of what should I say, free flowness of this TDS credit to me, there will not be any applicability of TDS. So no TDS will be deducted in such scenario. So can tax one deducted be claimed as refund? Yes. And who all can claim? Whosoever borne the incident. That means if I have deducted it wrongly or it should not have been deducted, then again I could have, and if I have not deposited the same, then I mean there has to be a mechanism. Let's say I have deducted, I have deposited to the government, and other person has taken the credit also. So now if I go to the government and say, no, I have wrongly deducted and I have wrongly deposited to you, he said, okay, never mind. You have asked the other person to pay this thing. I mean, the incidence has been borne by someone else. You have deducted, you have deposited, and the other person has also taken the credit. So in such scenario, there is no loss to anyone. So there will not be any refund. So yes, it is possible, but you have to see, deductor cannot claim refund once the amount has been credited to the cash ledger. Like I have already taken the benefit of this amount. Now you cannot ask the government to go and get the refund done, because in case you get the refund from the government, then I will be justifiedly taking the undue advantage of the thing that should not had been done on the first part. So you have to be very cautious. Yes, there is a possibility of refund mechanism. There is no denial on the same because the wording of section 54 are any taxes, and this is a component of tax as per the provision of 54. But such refund has to be claimed either by the deductor or by the deductee, but not by the both of them. So they have to decide who will be claiming the refund. But yes, further, deductor cannot claim once the deductor has already deposited and the deductee has already taken the credit. In such scenario, though the option of claiming refund with the deductor is also applicable or is open to him, but still they will not be able to claim the refund once the amount deducted has been credited to the electronic cash ledger of the deductee. So we have to take care of this provision also. Can a composition dealer take the credit of taxes deducted at source? Yes, because this doesn't amount to the color of input tax. This is not an input tax credit. This is different from input tax credit, and composition dealer is not allowed to avail the benefit of input tax credit, but this doesn't have the color of input tax credit. So in that scenario, whatever deduction has been made on account of TDS, even the composition dealer will be having the right to claim for the same. So yes, composition dealer can also take the credit and adjust this amount against his output liability because he will be having this in as a cash ledger balance only. So he can utilize that cash ledger balance to mitigate his own output liability. Will tax or the TDS deducted on supplies received from outside India? No, because RCM will be applicable, and on the transaction where RCM is applicable, there is no liability for the deduction of TDS on that such transaction. So these are the journal compliances that has to be taken care by deductor. So he has to take registration, and yes, please mind it, the registration is mandatory under section 24. Whosoever has to deduct TDS, he has to mandatorily take in registration and a separate registration for the TDS provision also. So TDS registration has to be there. Then you have to furnish a monthly GSTR 7 as per section. I have specified the sections also. And as section 24 is applicable, so for the person who has to deduct TDS, there is no threshold because he is not governed by section 22, he is governed by section 24. So there is a mandatory requirement for him to go for the registration. Issue TDS certificate as per section 51, he has to issue the TDS certificate also. Keeping proper records, obviously he has to take care of all the records as per section 35. Then transaction has to be maintained, all the records of all the transaction deducted. Like we get our form 16 and all those stuff. So he has to take care of all those documents that may be required for further verification or evidence that yes, he has deducted the TDS and he has deposited the same. Keep all the records for all the contracts also, whatever the contract, because in some cases his GSTR1 may be showing something else and he's not able to deduct the amount on those transactions. Then he has to mitigate that onus also, that yes, the applicability of TDS was not there on such transaction. This is the reason I have not deducted. These are the copy of contracts, or these are the copy of agreement between two parties which suffice that yes, the TDS liability was there or TDS liability was not there. So he has to take care of all the documents and he has to preserve them properly also. Then from the side of this, we have understood from the side of deductor, this comes from the side of deductee. So in case deductee is there, so what all thing he has to do, he has to be a registered person. Acceptance of TDS, I mean section 10 also, he can be a registered person as a composition dealer also. He has to accept TDS TCS return showing on the GST portal, furnish monthly or quarterly returns so that he can avail the credit shown in his TDS return. All the provisions of section 35, like keeping all the keeping and maintaining all the records, certificates and other allied transaction related records, he has to preserve the same as per the provision mentioned in section 35. Now comes a very important aspect, value, because there are three limits. Taxable supply. First, the supply has to suffice that yes, it is an eligible supply on which TDS. Then comes the next question, rate of tax, which we have already talked about, 1% C plus 1% SGST or 2% IGST. Third point, important point is on what amount, on what value these tax has to be deducted, on what value you have to decide that yes, this is the value on which TDS has to be deducted. So even as per section 15, we have to see certain provision, and also in this section also they have mentioned that to determine the total value of supply for the value on which TDS has to be deducted, any kind of taxes under GST has to be excluded. This means no tax shall be deducted or no TDS shall be deducted on the component pertaining to CGST, SGST or IGST or UTGST as a tax amount shown in the bill or invoice. All other charges has to be included in the total value of supply as per the provisions applicable under section 15, where it says all the incidence amount or whatever amount you or even the recipient has spent on behalf of the supplier only, which was ought to be his expense, though you have to take care of those things also, and you have to add everything in that value of supply, and on that amount your TDS will be applicable. But yes, what all you have to deduct, you have to deduct the GST taxes like CGST, SGST, UTGST and IGST on the from the amount on which you need to calculate the liability for the TDS, or on which you have to calculate the value of supply. The 5 items, like if in case it is an exempt supply, no TDS, no GST supply, no TDS. So you have to take care the 5 items of petroleum like your MS, HSD, crude oil, aviation, ATF or natural gas, and alcohol for human consumption are out of the purview of GST. So in this scenario, when they are not even they are not within the purview of GST, so then how can TDS be applicable to them? So all those things which are not within the purview of GST, there is no liability for TDS also. Therefore, no GST, no TDS applicable to them. Irrespective of the turnover of the supply, person has to get himself registered by virtue of section 24, and it has to be a separate GST registration. A TDS deductor has to compulsorily register without any threshold limit. The deductor has the privilege of obtaining registration under GST without having PAN also. He can have on TAN basis also. So he can obtain his registration under on the basis of TAN also. So either PAN or TAN, both can be used for his registration for this provision. So this was the provisions that we have dealt up to now pertaining to TDS. So any query pertaining to TDS we can take up quickly. So I'll just request the organizers if they can open the chat box.
Yes,
so that in case they have any queries pertaining to the provisions related to TDS, we can just take up quickly for let's say within 2-3 minutes.
sure.
I hope the queries will be noted in the chat box itself. No. Without regular registration, how will you avail TDS? Because for TDS availment also, you need to go and file the return on the portal. You need to accept whatever the whatever thing has been uploaded by the other party or by the deductor. Then only deductor will be able to avail the benefit. So he need to be registered person. Yes, nil return should be filed. Threshold for TDS deduction we have already dealt with 2,50,000 exceeding 2,50,000. No, I have very clearly mentioned, Pratik, that you don't have to add GST. That's what I said. As per section 15, whatever amount on which you have to deduct TDS is without GST, without SGST, CGST, ITGST, IGST or UTGST. Okay. Mr. Gajendra has said quickly, I'll just re-summarize when deductor does not have to deduct. So I'll just go back to the slide so that it is pretty more clear. See, when the value is not exceeding 2,50,000, when the individual value of my invoice is not exceeding 2,50,000, despite the fact that consolidated value can be more than 2,50,000. When there is an exempt supply, no TDS. In case there is a mixed supply or with exempt supplies as well as taxable supplies, in that scenario also, the value for taxable supply has to exceed 2,50,000. Further, place of supply has to be taken care of when the location of the supplier and the place of supply is in a state which is different from the state where the recipient is located. In that scenario also, there will be no liability to deduct taxes. Then all transactions pertaining to Schedule 3, no TDS will be applicable. Any amount that has been received before 1st of October 2018, there will be no liability for TDS. Any transaction on which reverse charge is applicable, there is no requirement for TDS also. And in case any payment is made to registered supplier, on that also no TDS. So somebody has just asked me, can a person go ahead with TDS certificate without registration? So in case it is an unregistered person, there will be no TDS applicable to the other party also. So these were the quick provisions where there is no applicability of TDS or there is no requirement for the TDS. If the TDS is deducted by interstate and also accepted, and I don't know, I couldn't understand. Can we claim TDS without filing return by deductor? No, you cannot, because once the deductor will be uploading the return, then only you are able to accept the same, and then only that will be credited to your cash ledger. So without the deductor filing the return, there is no provision. There is a penal provision. In case he is not filing the returns within the prescribed time limit, then there is a penalty of 100 rupees per day, maximum of 5,000 rupees, and also interest applicable. How to handle any non-compliance from government side? Sorry, sir. Because late filing or incorrect filing, this is very common, and especially this is very common when the government department are involved. Only help or resort is left out is like in case the amount is very substantiate or the stakes are high, then you have only one remedy, and that is going and knocking the doors of the courts only. Otherwise, there is no mechanism where you can make any amendments, or and they are not going to listen to you also, despite the fact may you give them reminders and n number of reminders, but they'll work at their pace only. When multiple invoices are issued less than 2,50,000, even then no TDS? Yes. Whether this is not a misuse of rule? Yes, this is a misuse of rule, and mischief is always there, and especially GST is full of mischiefs. But can't help, this is the way the law has been worded. The TDS received nearby 1 crore, and we have taken credit by filing this under head of our GST login. But our actual credit only 16 lakhs. How come you receive excess credit when the credit was not pertaining to you? Sorry, I'm not able to understand the query. And in case you have availed wrong amount, like if you have availed something which doesn't belong to you, then you have to reverse the same with the interest as per section 50. This on suo motu basis, because once this has been deducted from the other side, then the penal provision will be more stringent. Then there will be a penalty also, suppression of the fact, invocation of the longer duration, and all those things will be started off. And then looking into the quantum also, other provisions like of act will also be made applicable to you. So please be cautious. In case by mistake you have availed something which doesn't belong to you, so better to go and reverse the same and pay the interest on the same. So you need to go and reverse the same. Bill raised on March, but TDS deducted in April. Hence, difference in GSTR 3B versus what to do. Yes, this we have seen many times. Bill has been raised. The liability to deduct TDS is month-wise, and the same has to be deposited to the department also on the monthly basis only. But still, we have seen that there is lot of lag in this provision, and because of this mismatch, at times, even if the return will be filed belated, but still it will be reflected in the same month only. So you have to go and accept yes, there will be a cost to you. Your working capital will be blocked because you are not able to avail the benefit which you should have availed. But there is no remedy for the same. So whatever amount has been deducted for the month of March will be reflected in the return to be submitted for the month of March itself, and whenever you will get to accept the same, it will be reflected in your cash ledger. Is it possible to restrict the credit into cash ledger? No, there is no such mechanism. It is a portal oriented mechanism, and there is no your say in that. You cannot control the portal. The portal is running, that's I mean, grace of God, and we cannot do anything with the portal. In case you have availed the wrong cash credit that is not belonging to your cash ledger, or that should not have been availed in the first instance, only remedy available to you is that you need to pay it back. You need to reverse the same. I mean, you have to go and deposit the same. This is the only remedy available. Okay, let's move ahead. I think 5 minutes break was over by this time, and let's move ahead. Okay. So now comes e-commerce industry, because the provision we will be taking care will be TCS. We have already dealt with TDS. Now comes the provision of TCS. TCS is applicable on e-commerce operators when the transaction is involving any e-commerce, and again certain scenarios has been specified in the statute. So in recent years, we have seen, and especially in this pandemic COVID-19 situation, we have seen that there is a huge leap in online business and marketing scenario, and we all have seen that we all have become very comfortable in on online shopping, which may not have been a general scenario or a regular scenario before this lockdown. But during this lockdown, I don't think anybody is, I'll seldom find anyone who can say, oh yes, I have yet not started online shopping, because we were left with no other choice. For such a long duration of time, we all were within the vicinity of our homes, and we have to take care of our daily needs also. So we all have tasted the tasted the flavors of online shopping. So we have seen it is comfortable. You can order anytime, sitting at the comfort level of your home, and within scheduled time period, or even the delivery is really nice. Timely based delivery is also there, and dedicated staffs are there, and it's very convenient mode of shopping. So yes, we have seen, and India being a good purchasing power country, we will be seeing that we are the major players in this industry. That's why all the big names are really looking forward to come and invest in our country. And if you see the graph of recent times, the increase on the consumer bandwidth has been in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Because of the comforts of the e-commerce business, we have seen that even the person sitting in a tier 2, tier 3 city, or in fact tier 4 cities, like a remote place also, still they have this kind of availability, or this kind of ease of doing purchase, that they're sitting in a remote area and still they are able to procure the goods from whatever the vendor they are looking for, and all the goods have penetrated deeply into our economy now, that we all are so used to this platform, or we are so used to this online shopping. So what is the e-commerce industry is dealing all about? So it is the market is expected to reach the benchmark, and I think it must have crossed the benchmark way before the end of this year 2020. E-commerce is still less than 2% of the overall consumption, as against 14% of China. But I think even we are the speed of our increase is much more multiple times ahead than what other developed countries, or even the big names like China or USA are to be taken care of. Obviously, explosive growth, the sector, we have seen this sector has grown like anything. Every day new app will be launched, and we all are so comfortable in doing the money transaction, even on like Paytm, Beam, or Google Pay. And these are very comfortable platforms also to use. And yes, every coin has two sides. The risk is always attached to all these transactions, but still, I mean, the comfort level provided by these application or these portals are really, really very high. And that's the reason they are so, I mean, lucrative, that everybody is looking forward and to go and have some kind of interaction on these portals. So yes, a major part of our GDP is also being run by e-commerce operator or on the transactions that are being run on e-commerce. We can sell internationally also, 24/7 customer support is there. Cost has been reduced. Now the people don't have to invest on huge showrooms or huge infrastructure. What they are doing is just they are putting their goods at one aggregator or a common place to store them, and they are able to display and at one go. Like every shop must have a limited capacity to attend the customers. But in this scenario, lakhs and lakhs of people are accessing your portal on the same time, and you're able to cater to the so large bandwidth of the customer. So these are the advantages that has been taken care by e-commerce operator. And this is the reason there was a huge hue and cry, and this is the reason the GST department has looked forward and they had made this TCS provision applicable, so that all these transactions, whatever is happening on the e-commerce portal, can have a double security or can have a double check. So what they have done is, with the provision of TCS, whatever payment I am making to my vendor, I will be deducting, or I will be charging some amount as TCS, and that amount will be deposited. So end of the day, when I will be submitting a return, where I will be reflecting as these person, they have done these amount of transaction, and this is their applicable TCS which I have deducted and I am depositing with you. So let's say if I have deducted a TCS of amounting to X amount, so X amount being on 1% of the total volume of transaction which I have done, and with that you are able to map individual taxpayers transaction also, and the same can be mapped anytime with the GST department also. So this is the way of again taking out or extracting the data from different portal and then referring the same or mapping it on the back end with the desire of their desire of seeing where the leakage of revenues are happening, or is there any leakage of revenue or no. So yes, these are the benefit, and these are the relevant definitions which we will be taking care of. Electronic commerce means supply. As per CGST Act section 2 subsection 44 says, electronic commerce means supply of goods or services or both, including digital product over digital or electronic network, like your iBooks or your music on soft content. That's a digital platform where the content is also supplied in a digital form only. An electronic commerce operator, that is electronic commerce, that is e-commerce. Then who is e-commerce operator? E-commerce operator means any person who owns, operate or manage digital or electronic facility or platform for electronic commerce. Like that means that's a different thing. And e-commerce operators are the person who runs or manages that particular platform where the buyer and sellers are meeting, and he's just providing the facility, or he is facilitating the interaction between the buyer and the seller. So he is the one who is known as electronic commerce operator. And e-commerce means the trading of goods or services or both on this electronic platform or on this electronic media. Then IGST Act, OIDR is again a form of e-commerce operation only, where the content is traded, or content is what should I say, is traded and flown over the internet only, and it is traded in a soft version or on a I version. I version means it is on online version only, or digital version only it will be dealt with. Registration requirement, mandatory requirement as per section 24. Composition scheme for e-commerce operator, they have excluded it. Even a person who has opted for e-commerce, then he cannot go and have transaction over, who has opted for composition, he cannot have transaction on the e-commerce platform, because that's barred on this under section 10. Registration, obviously e-commerce operator is required to collect TCS and aggregate their supplies through e-commerce operator exceeds, because their earlier Section 24 was there, then in case of services, there was a difficulty that has been faced by many taxpayers. So there was an exclusion that as there is a threshold limit for goods, so in same manner, they have even given the threshold limit for services also. And that was further extended to the services of like small carpenter or small technician whose threshold may not be 20, whose total supplies may not be crossing the threshold. So in that scenario, what government has given, they have given a relief that, okay, these kind of people, they don't require to get registered, they don't require to get themselves registered in case they will be providing their services through e-commerce. Let's say, take an example of Urban Clap. If we see Urban Clap, if I call some technician or some electrician from that portal, so that electrician or that technician need not get himself registered under GST. For that scenario, e-commerce operator or the Urban Clap or the aggregator will be liable to get himself registered. And same was the case with Uber, Ola. They also, I mean, the Uber, Ola will be requiring to get themselves registered, but the individual drivers or individual car owners who are working on that platform, who are providing the services to the individuals, they need not get themselves registered. So these are the provisions, basic requirement, registration requirement. Then as per section 52, TCS says every electronic commerce operator, that means e-commerce operator who owns, runs the platform, not being an agent, shall collect an amount collected at such rate not exceeding 1% of the net value of taxable supplies made through it by other suppliers. So whatever supplies are made through it, that means through that portal, through that e-commerce portal or through that e-commerce or online portal or their aggregate portal, there is a liability that yes, whatever supplies are being dealt on that portal, on the net value of taxable supplies, there will be a levy of TCS, where the consideration in respect of which such supplies is to be collected by the operator. That means the consideration has to be collected by the operator itself. The invoice may be issued directly, but in case when the transaction is happening through e-commerce operator and he's working through e-commerce operator, then whatever amount or the consideration that has to be paid on such supplies which has been collected by the aggregator or the operator, on that TCS will be applicable. And net value of consideration or net value of supplies means aggregate value of taxable supplies. Again, we have to take care, it is only of taxable supplies of goods or services or both, other than the services which are notified. 9595 is the provision where this kind of services are made applicable by virtue of statute, and on this subsection only they have issued the notification that where small technician, electricians or other service provider, they don't have to get themselves registered in case their threshold is not crossing 20 lakhs. In that scenario, there is an exclusion. Otherwise, net value of taxable supplies says that yes, this means aggregate value of taxable supplies of goods and services or both, other than the services. I mean, you have to exclude those consideration in relation to those services where you are not required to get yourself registered, made during any month by all registered person through operator, reduced by net aggregate value of the supplies returned. That means any negative or any return back of those goods only, or any deficiency in supply. That means any discount or any additional discount availed because of some deficiency. So that amount has to be deducted during the said month. Therefore, the return supplies are not part of the net supplies. And return is a very common aspect, because when you are doing online shopping, the best thing is that yes, you are able to return the same in case you are not liking the same, or in case of any, and they have the policy of no question asked return also. So this is the reason many people are more comfortable to shop on the online portal also. So in when you are calculating your tax liability, so you have to take care of all those returns which are made against those taxable supplies. So net value of taxable supply is equal to, if we summarize the same, aggregate value of taxable supplies of goods or services or both, minus supplies returned, minus supply 95 where RCM is made applicable. So TCS provision comes into effect with wide notification 51. There we have dealt with the notification number 50, and here the notification is 51/2018, and they were made applicable on the same date. Analysis if we do for the TCS provision, so it is again every electronic commerce operator, not being an agent, he has to get himself registered. When the consideration is received by him, no TCS will be applicable when the supply is not done through e-commerce operator, or in respect of an exempt supply, or where the services are being mentioned or they are specified under 9(5) of the CGST Act, or in respect of any activities that are listed in Schedule 3, that is no supply provision, or in respect of non-GST. So again, similar kind of provisions we have seen under TDS also. So they are more or less same only, and same provisions are applicable under TCS also. So no on exempt, nil rated, non-GST supply, no TCS. Yes, registration is mandatory, so there is no threshold. As per section 24, you have to get yourself registered. Section 24, subsection 10. Only a registered person can collect tax, and this is the kind of tax only. If an e-commerce operator is not covered as per 52, not required to get himself registered, then even though he's a commerce operator, that means they have provided an exclusion that in case you are guarded by that exclusion. Like if I take an example, if you are guarded by section 23, then 24 cannot invoke you to go and get yourself registered, because 23 is an exclusive section, or it's a non-obstante section, or it's an there is a special exclusion that has been carved out by the virtue of provision of the statute itself. Similarly, here also what they say is that in case the e-commerce operator is not covered under the provisions of section 52 and is not required to get himself registered despite the fact that he's an e-commerce operator, so in that scenario also there will be no TCS applicability. An example can be e-commerce operator providing services as referred under section 9(5), wide notification 65 only, where there will be an applicability of different mechanism. So in that scenario, you are not required to get yourself registered also, despite the fact you are sufficing the definition of e-commerce operator. Then the collector who is registered, who is a registered supplier and required to collect tax and need to get a separate GST registration as a TCS collector also. So there again similar line of provisions under TDS also. Same line, 10 days, within 10 days you need to deposit. Then he should file GSTR 8. There we have seen GSTR 7. Here it is GSTR 8. No need to issue any certificate by tax collector. Once the return is filed, it will be reflected in your cash ledger only. And amount of TCS deposited by operator with the appropriate government will be reflected in the electronic cash ledger of the actual registered supplier. Then whosoever is the actual registered supplier, who is eligible for that TCS, in his account only the same will be reflected. If the supplier is not able to use the money, as we have already discussed, he can go and avail the benefit of refund under section 54 of CGST. E-commerce operator is liable for TCS is to furnish an annual return also as per Rule 80 sub Rule 2 in the form of GSTR 9B. We have seen GSTR 9A, 9B and 9C also. So here the applicable form or applicable return is GSTR 9B. And we have seen these two definitions, who is an electronic commerce, what is an electronic commerce and who is an electronic commerce operator. So I'm not going again into the same provisions. When tax will be collected? Tax will be collected at source once supply has been made through e-commerce operator, irrespective of the actual collection of consideration. That means once the supply has been concluded, there the levy or the trigger point is conclusion of the supply. So the consideration receipt may be deferred, or that may be on a different time zone. But yes, when this transaction has been done on e-commerce, the trigger for the levy or the time of supply is triggered at that particular point only. When no tax will be collected, similarly we have seen under TDS also, when no TDS will be deducted, similar lines we have certain exclusions here also, where there will be no application of TCS. And what they say, when taxable supply is not effected through e-commerce operator, obviously when e-commerce operator is not only involved, and then there cannot be any question of TCS. When supply is made, we have seen this is an exclusion where 9(5) is applicable. In that scenario also, TCS is not applicable. When tax exempted supplies are affected, I mean exempted supply, non-GST supply or no supply, in that scenario also there cannot be any application of TCS. When the activities or transaction are specified in Schedule 3, so whatever is specified in Schedule 3 and you are dealing under those transactions, that means there are no supply. Schedule 3 means they are already enumerated as no supply. So when there is no supply, there cannot be any levy of GST also, because GST is levied only on supply. Whatever is defined under the definition of supply, if a transaction is falling under the definition of supply only, then only the provision of TCS can also be made applicable to your transaction. The procedure, as we have seen the procedure, or we have seen the steps involved in filing GSTR 7. Similarly, I have mentioned the steps involved in filing GSTR 8. You have to do login, you have to enter the detail, you have to review the form, then payment of taxes has to be made. TCS, obviously you have to make all the payment in cash only. Then file GSTR 8 by DSC or EBC. View debit entries in electronic cash ledger for tax payment, whatever is balance is available, because you have to pay by cash only, and download the file return. Rate of taxes, 1% is the rate of tax. That means 0.5% CGST, 0.5% SGST, or 1% IGST. Then comes one query in our mind, whether an e-commerce operator is required to obtain a registration in every state in which the supplier listed on their electronic commerce portal or platforms are located. So my supplier can be segregated, or they can be pan-based, pan-India basis. But then in that scenario, does the requirement for registration is invoked in my case also? So it says yes, registration of TCS would be required in each and every state, as the obligation of collection of TCS would be there in each and every state, whether interstate or intrastate. So you have to be very cautious while filing the while filing the application for registration. So the whole mechanism is there. You have to furnish a statement, you have to file the annual returns, then sharing the details with the supplier. The detail of tax collected at source furnished by an e-commerce operator under section 52 in form GSTR 8 shall be made available to the concerned person. How will I see whether the amount has been uploaded or no? So they have provided a mechanism in scenario when there is an e-commerce transaction and TCS has been deducted. So what they will be doing is they will be uploading the GSTR form 8, and I will be the concerned person who is involved or concerned with this transaction. He will be able to see that amount in part D of GSTR 2A. That means it will be reflected in my 2A electronically through the electronic commerce portal, and such taxable person may include the same in his GSTR 2. This mechanism they have mentioned in the Act also, they have mentioned in the statute also, but we all are aware that as of now GSTR 2 is not made available. So it will be reflected in your 2A, and from there you can take the, you can see in your cash balance. Due date after 10th of the next month. Rectification of mistake. If any operator after furnishing the statement discovers any omission or incorrect particulars therein, he shall rectify the omission or incorrect. We have seen in the tab which I have shared, there is an amendment tab also. So that means whatever you have punched in, you are able to amend the same also, and then the corrected figure will be reflected in the other person's cash ledger. However, this mistake cannot be a result of scrutiny. In case there is some mistake, and that mistake can happen because it's a genuine mistake. Error is human. We are all humans, and while punching the data, there can be any error that may have occurred. So they have very clearly mentioned, or they have very clearly specified that yes, because of these kind of errors, if there is some kind of mistake or some kind of omission or some kind of error, then this should not result in scrutiny, audit, inspection, or enforcement activity by the tax authorities. Let's say I have to mention some X amount, I have mentioned some other amount, and that may result in some kind of deficit, or that may result in some kind of default. But that default is a genuine default, and that can happen due to an oversight or a human error. So in this scenario, it should not be made a reason, or it should not be made a ground that yes, this error has occurred by me. So now you are prone to audit, you are prone to inspection or search, or some enforcement activities should be initiated against you because there is a separation. So they have very clearly mentioned that no, this should not be the scenario. No such rectification of any omission or incorrect particulars shall be allowed after the due date for furnishing of statement for the month of September. Again, same line of provision we have seen under section 16 subsection 4 also. Due date for filing return for the month of September or annual return. There they have mentioned annual return also. So accordingly, you have to decide the date. But here what they are saying is whatever amendments or whatever changes or rectification that you want to do in a particular financial year, that should have been concluded, or that must conclude on or before the due date for filing the return for the month of September, falling in the immediately in the next financial year. And that means if let's say if I take the example, we are in September only. So whatever I have done in year 1920, whatever amendment that need to be incorporated, even as per section 16 subsection 4, and even as per the provision of this act also, this says that should have been completed before the due date or before filing of within the September month's return, and that return has to be filed on time only, because the wording in law is due date. So if in case I am filing it a late return, then this provision or this benefit will not be of any resort to me also. This is my understanding, that yes, when due date has been mentioned, so that means whatever you have to do or whatever amendment you have to undertake, it has to be done by the timeline that has been prescribed under the statute and not beyond that. That means after due date, there will not be any help to you, or there will not be any of resort to you. Some query has been, okay. I think we are within the time zone, so that is the reason I'm sticking to the time also. Matching of details, you have to see whatever claim that has been reflected on the portal, you will be able to claim the same. In case it is short reflected, then there is a problem. You have to follow up. Notice to the operators for furnishing certain details. They have a provision under this act that yes, tax authorities has the power in case whatever information or intimation that you are reflecting on the portal, in case I need something beyond that, so I am able to, I can call for that information. Authorities has the power to do so. Penalty up to 25,000 as per act in case returns are not furnished properly. Offense and penalty, we have to see that if operator fails to collect tax as per the provision mentioned under GST law, or collects the amount which is less than the amount required to be collected, or either he has not collected, or he is collecting less amount, or he has already collected but he is not depositing the same, that means tax collected but not deposited, then in that case he will be liable to pay a penalty of rupees 10,000, or tax not collected or not deposited under section 52, or short collected or short deposited, whichever is higher. So basic threshold is 10,000, and in case the actual amount or actual loss to the department is higher than that, then the higher amount will be your penalty. The journal compliances to be taken care by collector on the similar lines only: registration, then monthly return, 9B, and section 35, that is proper books of accounts or proper records has to be maintained. By collecting, these are the provision he has to accept, he has to furnish his return, he has to maintain the proper records, he has to maintain the certificates, and he has to keep track of all the entries that he's undertaking on the platform. So department has clarified the tax on intrastate supplies shall be paid by e-commerce operators in these scenarios, like services by radio taxis, motor cab, maxi cab, Ola, Uber was the example. Then accommodation services by way of providing accommodations in hotel, in guest houses, club houses, club campsite or other thing, except where the person supplying such services through e-commerce operator is liable for registration under section 22. That means his threshold has already crossed and he is otherwise liable. So in that scenario, it's okay, but otherwise he can, the registration requirement can be sufficed by the e-commerce operator and not the individual supplier of the services. So this is again one relief, because when this provision was made applicable, there were certain difficulties and there was a deferment of this provision also. So all these clarification has been issued by the department. Then again, services by way of housekeeping, plumbing, carpeting, etc. that we have dealt there also, they have relaxed the registration norm for the actual suppliers of those services like the carpenter or plumbers. But in that scenario also, e-commerce operator shall be liable to take the registration as per the provision of section 22. That means there will be a threshold limit applicable and not as per 24. They are saying as per 22. So whenever there is a provision of 22 is being invoked, that means there is a threshold available to the person or available to the taxpayer. So for the purpose of notification, 2 notifications were issued in this regard pertaining to this radio taxi and this small service providers. And so we can refer to those notifications 17/2017 and 23/2017. And what does radio taxi mean and maxi cab means? It has been clarified in this notification only. Looking into this current pandemic situation, there has been in white circular number 136 issued on 3rd of April, which says that under the provision of section 168A of the CGST Act, in terms of notification number 35, that's a relaxation notification, said class of person have been allowed to furnish the statement specified in section 52 for the month. So there has been a relaxation on the timeline for furnishing of the returns, and same timeline has been further extended. First extension was up to 30th June. Then the same has been further extended up to 31st August by notification number 55. So first 35, then same 35 has been further amended and the time period has been further relaxed. It just the timeline has just passed by, and that was done by notification 55/2020. Then there was a query from the Tea Board. We all know that Tea Board is a consortium and it is an initiator where the vendors or the suppliers, they trade tea. So in that scenario, because it's an online portal, it's an auction portal, we all know that tea is being auctioned and Tea Board is the one who is responsible for holding such kind of auctions. So with the invocation of provisions of TCS, so then the query was raised that whether this kind of tea boards, are they also prone to such provisions? So then there was a circular in which it was clarified that yes, in case tea board, should he collect TCS under section 52 of CGST Act from seller of the tea, I mean the tea producer, from where? From the tea producer or from the auctioneers, like who are the auctioneers of tea, or for the both side they are the auctioneers, like they are the auctioneers also for the buyer and also auctioneers for the supplier also. So in that scenario, they have clarified that yes, it being an online operator, it being an e-platform for the conduction of auctions, so they are liable for the TCS provisions also, and Tea Board should collect TCS as per the respective provision. What it says that it should collect from the seller that yes, whatever that is the tea producer, whatever the net value they are getting for the tea, they value for the proceeds, whatever they have taken care or they have executed on the platform, on that net value, that means whatever the net value they are taking from, because what will be the scenario in this scenario, whatever the amount that is a buyer is paying to the seller, he will be paying it to the board only. So amount will be coming to the escrow account. From there it will be disbursed accordingly, like seller will be getting his share, auctioneer will be getting his fees with whatever he will be charging, and that Tea Board will not be paying any kind of fees. That fees will be charged from both the parties, that is buyer and the seller. So he says, okay, now Tea Board, as he is a facilitator, so he has to deduct TCS from seller also on whatever net proceed he will be receiving. On that amount only he will be deducting TCS, and from auctioneer on the net value of supplies of services, that whatever brokerage, and he will be charging brokerage on both the limb. We all know that even in case of stock trading or securities trading, there is a brokerage on both the limb, like buy and sell, both have a brokerage. Similarly, in case of a movable property also, the brokerage is being paid by both the parties, like the seller as well as the buyer. So in here also, T-Board will be collecting TCS from the seller as well as from the auctioneer, and accordingly, it will be depositing the same to the department. Now comes the FAQ. In case a foreign e-commerce operator who does not have a place of business in India but supplies, conduct the business, and their supplier and customers are located in India, in such scenario, will the TCS provision be applicable in PS? How will foreign e-commerce operator obtain registration? So we all know, in case of a foreign e-commerce operator, or in case where the other person is not registered in India or is not liable to get himself registered, in that scenario also, in case he want to conduct his business in India, he has to get himself registered, and in case he cannot get himself registered, he has to appoint an agent who on his behalf will be taking care of all the registration aspect and all the legal provisions. So similar answer has been provided in this FAQ also. So when a supplier of goods or services supplied through e-commerce operator would he be entitled to threshold? So only threshold has been provided to those small suppliers of services, and otherwise there is a mandate requirement to get yourself registered in case you want to do an online portal or online trading through the portal. So as per section 24(9) of CGST Act, every person supplying goods through an e-commerce operator shall be mandatorily required to get themselves registered irrespective of the threshold limit. So only relaxation has been provided for the suppliers of services. So what is the correct valuation methodology that has to be taken care while while collecting TCS? So as per section 15, that's a valuation provision. It says that value of supply shall include any taxes, duties, cess, fees, charge levied under any law from time being in force other than GST Act. That means other than CGST, SGST, UTGST, and IGST. Then again, for the purpose of determination of value of supply under GST, TCS amount under income tax, because there is a similar provision of TCS under income tax also. So that amount of under income tax will not be included in your transaction value, and that's an interim levy and does not have the character of tax, because whatever TCS you are collecting over here or you are collecting under income tax, that's a different different statute or different provision under the statute. It is not the basic tax. So though section 15 subsection 2 talks about including all kind of taxes, levies, duties, cess, fees, etc., but TCS, what is being deducted under income tax, will not fall under the purview of the same. So it should not be added, and the same has been clarified by circular number 76 also. Whether TCS to be collected on supplies on which recipient is required to pay on reverse charge? No, we have seen wherever reverse charge is applicable, no TDS or no TCS. Whether TCS is to be collected in respect of supplies made by composition payers? No, because composition taxpayers are not eligible to hold transaction on e-commerce platform. Whether tax to be collected at source on import of goods? No, again RCM is applicable, so no TCS is applicable. Whether payment of TCS through input tax credit? No, payment has to be made in cash only, and they will not be having any no provision of settling the payment of TCS while using your input tax credit. It is very common that customer of e-commerce companies return goods. So whatever net values we will be, so in how to adjust these amount? So we have to see the net amount only, and in case and it has to be dealt with vendor wise. So every vendor will be calculated the net supplies at the level of vendors only. So negative figures of each individual vendor has to be taken care, and in totality also it has to be taken care. So in word, value of supplies when returned may be adjusted from the aggregate value of taxable supplies made by each supplier. So it has to be done on supplier level. In other words, if two supplier A and B are making supplies through e-commerce operator, and the net value of taxable supplies would be calculated separately for A and separately for B, if the value of returned supply is more than supplies made on behalf of any of such supplier during that period, the same has to be ignored in this case. So that means negative figures you cannot incorporate, but it has to be taken care. Similarly, the provision of credit note is also there under GSTR 1. In that scenario also, in case there is a negative figure, we have to further adjust in the subsequent month's return, but you cannot incorporate a negative figure in that particular return. So same provision goes for TCS returns also. Under Section 52 of CGST Act, e-commerce operator collect taxes on the net value. Sometimes sale return is more than sales, hence negative amount can be reported. No, negative amount cannot be reported. There will be no impact in even in next tax period also. In other words, if return are more than the supplies made during any tax period, the same would be ignored in current as well as future periods also, because you have to adjust that whole amount. So can the same additional place of business be registered by multiple supplier? And yes, because we have seen, let's take an example of Amazon. Amazon has a huge warehouse, and whenever you see that Amazon Prime or fulfilled by Amazon, so fulfilled by Amazon means that particular stock is being stored at Amazon warehouse only. And in that scenario, you have to get yourself get your profile amended, and you have to get that particular place as your additional place of business. So yes, multiple persons are allowed to get themselves registered at a particular place as their additional place of business. This is a valid scenario under the statute also. And even for the services also, now we have seen that yes, even co-works, though you may not be having a particular office or you may not be having a dedicated space, but still co-works are eligible where you can get yourself registered, and your registration will be a valid registration. And similar provisions are there under this provision also. On e-commerce aggregator model also, his warehouse can be your additional place of business. Under multiple e-commerce operator model, let's say he books, customer A books hotel via e-commerce operator 1, who is again integrated with e-commerce operator 2, who has an agreement with the hotel airline. That means e-commerce operator 1 is only a medium between me and e-commerce operator 2. The final contract with the hotel is of e-commerce operator 2. In such scenario, who will be liable to deduct TCS? So whosoever is making final payment to the supplier, that means e-commerce operator 2, who will be making final payment to the supplier, that is the hotel owner or hotel service provider, he will be liable to take care of the provisions of or to collect the TCS from the supplier. So in this scenario, e-commerce operator 2 will be the concerned person or will be the concerned authority to collect TCS. So within time limit, I think I'm able to complete my deliberation, and so I'm opening the house for the queries now. If someone forget to claim TDS due to lack of clarity in 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, can he claim year 2000 and 2021? How will he claim? That means he has not accepted, and there is a timeline. Once you have not fulfilled that timeline, I mean, there is a time you have to accept that credit. So again, 16.4 is also there, and whatever this is in cash credit. That means it has to be reflected in your returns only. So I can understand that it is not input tax credit, so application of timeline should not be there. But again, there is a timeline to accept, and in case you are able to accept the returns format of the returns, that the way they had been drafted, and if you are able to go and accept those transactions, you are able to proceed with the filing of that return, particular month's return. And in that scenario, if you are able to do the compliance part, then there is no bar, because it's a cash provision only, and the amount has to be reflected in your cash ledger. So I think you can just go and try with the portal. If it allows you, then there should not be any bar. Whether each state notified one jurisdiction to take registration for GST TCS registration. Can you please elaborate this question, because I'm not able to get what exactly you're looking for.
एक्चुअली जब रजिस्ट्रेशन लेते हैं तो वहाँ पे जिस दूसरे स्टेट में जब रजिस्ट्रेशन लेना है तो उस केस में जुरिडिक्शंस पूछता है वो। तो ऐसा एक तो सर्कुलर या कहीं नोटिफिकेशन आया था जहाँ पे ये बताया गया था कि आपको जो वहाँ पे जो फर्स्ट ड्रॉप डाउन आ रहा है वहाँ सिलेक्ट कर लीजिए और वो आपका रजिस्ट्रेशन होगा। या अगर जिस स्टेट ने नोटिफाइड करा है जुरिडिक्शन तो आप उसको सिलेक्ट करिए, पर्टिकुलरली इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कॉमर्स ऑपरेटर।
आई थिंक कॉमर्स ऑपरेटर को सारे स्टेट्स में रजिस्ट्रेशन लेना ये मैंडेटरी है, और आप एक पर्टिकुलर, अगर आपका वहाँ पे कोई प्रिंसिपल प्लेस नहीं है या आपका कोई ऑपरेशंस नहीं है उस स्टेट में, बट बिकॉज आपको क्योंकि आपका सप्लायर है उस स्टेट में, तो फिर आपको वहाँ पे प्रोविजन ऑफ what should I say, making an head office has to be there. Like then you have to make a head office, or you have to make a principal place of business in that particular state
No,
first.
ma'am, there is a
Then
no
only you will
requirement.
be able to.
Ma'am, there is a no requirement to make an office in that state. As per the
No,
portal.
I'm saying in case you have to, because TCS has to be collected on a supplier basis. And in case your supplier is situated, then in such scenario, how will you deal with the situation?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, your point is correct. Correct.
Sir, I'm not able to get your voice. This is the reason. Just a moment.
Yes.
Let me increase the volume. Yes, sir. What you are saying?
मैम एक्चुअली आपको पॉइंट सही है बट उसमें कहीं पे ये लिखा हुआ है कि हर एक स्टेट को नोटिफाइड करना है इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कॉमर्स ऑपरेटर के लिए.
Yeah,
Actually, I will share you
because
some source of this. एक्चुअली में ये लिखा हुआ है दैट्स व्हाई मैम एक्चुअली देयर इज अ प्रॉब्लम. अगर आप सिलेक्ट नहीं करेंगे तो वहाँ किस टाइप से आप बिजनेस कर पाएंगे क्योंकि जीएसटी टीसीएस तो पे करना ही है वहाँ पे.
see, portal compliance, I'm not very well versed because I am not filed the registration form or something for that. But only as per legal provision, I'm just saying that in case it is a TCS transaction and you have to collect, so there is a provision in case you are not having any operation in that state, then you need to have at least one. You can have that, so you can suffice this provision, I suppose.
And next question.
At one state, and then it can be taken care as a service. Anyway, I'll park this question and I'll get back to you with the, in case there is any difference of opinion between your understanding and my understanding. So I'll provide the same on your mail.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. Because it says that in respect of such recollected. Anyway, yes, move ahead, sir. Any further queries are there?
Yes, ma'am. Date box.
Oh, no, for exempted supplies, there is a provision. Now, I always say exempted supplies are governed by Section 23, and your Section 24 is only an overruling provision for Section 22. That means where a threshold is applicable. In case you are only dealing with exempted goods, then there is no requirement because Section 23 is not being overruled by Section 24. This is my understanding. I'm not aware of this thing, 18% and 5%, because ultimate customer they are charging and is charged to the ultimate customer, and 5% is provided through unregistered person, for example, plumbing services. I mean, this question is not clear. What you want to say? You are saying that under 9(5) if e-commerce operator are dealing with a registered person, then 18% is charged to the ultimate customer, and 5% if provided through unregistered person. I mean, there cannot be a difference of taxation on the same transaction, because transaction per se is not, I mean, is not defined by the type of taxpayer. The same kind of difference of opinion has been there under rent-a-cab service also, where RCM applicability is there. So I don't think so there can be two rate of taxes. I mean, the rate of tax will be the same amount only. Now, if I am a unregistered chartered accountant or some registered chartered accountant, then levy of tax rate will be same. Only difference will be I am an unregistered, so I will not be charging. He is a registered person, he will be charging 18%. So I'm not very clear on this question. Trying to start Swiggy, Uber. Okay, my question is, will it be necessary to take GST registration mandated by restaurants to supply through this portal if their turnover is below. Yes, sir. If the supplies is a taxable supply, so there is no exclusion. I only said 24 is not overriding 23. That means there your either it has to be under RCM or it has to be under for exempted goods or services only. But when you are talking of a taxable supply that is governed by the provision of section 22, then 24 is required to be taken care of, and in that scenario mandatory requirement will be there. Because section 24 bars you whenever you are doing an interstate transaction on e-commerce operator. So only exclusion are some service provider, they are excluded by notification by virtue of 9(5), but not all the service providers. No, there is no requirement for TCS certificate. TDS certificate is there, but as per provision of law, there is no TCS certificate. There is no requirement of TCS certificate. Yes, you have to file the returns. Because as long you have not surrendered or cancelled your TDS registration, then you still need to file the return. Suspension time period is there, but that time period only starts when there is an application for cancellation, not before that. 9B. So don't ask porter related question because they are beyond our capacity. We can only talk about legal provisions. We can only talk about statute, but we cannot talk about the modalities of GST portal because that is beyond our reach. Unregistered supplier, you don't have to deduct TCS. This is what my example is. Ola Uber, the registration requirement is not with the individual drivers. The requirement is with the operator, get themselves registered. So in that scenario, when the other person is unregistered, I have already said you that they are out of the purview. So there will not be any TCS, because in that scenario, they will not be getting the benefit because they are not registered. Make My Trip is a portal, and ultimately whosoever is making payment to the hotel, he will be liable to collect the TCS. So TCS certificate has been made mandatory by virtue of law, and that has to be made applicable through Amendment Act 2020, but that particular provision of TDS certificate is yet not implemented. So that is the reason you are not getting the TDS certificates, because the provision is yet not made applicable. There are many amendments that has been made incorporated in the law, but the particular provision for inception of that particular provision is not yet been notified. Like and good example is amendment in section 50, which recently got notified. Similarly, TDS certificate provision is not yet notified. I never said that in case your product is not taxable, you are governed by section 23. If you are dealing in exempt turnover or exempted supply of goods or services or both, in that scenario you are not governed by section 24. This is what I am saying again and again. So one more query is there that 24 says registration compulsory in case you are selling through e-commerce operator and the product is not taxable. Then you are governed by virtue of section 23. It is a litigative point. See, whatever written in statute, today even the lawmakers or the department persons are fighting against those provisions. I mean, they are not acting the way they should have acted and as per what the wordings are written in law provision. But as per my understanding of the law, I can only say that Section 23 is separate from Section 24, and Section 24 is not overruling Section 23. So in case your product is exempted product, you're not abide by Section 24 to get yourself mandatory registered. So no, there is no threshold for for not deduction, for collection. TCS is not deducted; it is collection. So there is no threshold for collection of TCS. Why not? Bank can take registration as an ISD, input service distributor. There is no exclusion. But yes, their availability of credit is governed on a different proportion, like 50% or on actual basis. So they are governed by those provision only, but there is no bar where ISD registration cannot be taken up by banks. I mean, credit is reflected. How come credit? TDS is in your cash ledger. Why you are saying it credit? That means you have not followed the proper compliance procedure. Whenever there is a reflection of TDS, it will be reflected in your cash ledger and not your credit ledger. So how can you bring it in under credit? It will always be reflected in your cash ledger, and you can utilize this to discharge your payment, or in case there is an excess balance, you can always go and file for the refund of excess cash balance in your cash ledger. So that means you have not accepted. Whosoever raised this query, who has booked as an income tax TDS, so they have thought that, okay, whatever has been deducted, it will be auto reflected in my returns, and I will be utilizing the same. No, you have to go on the portal, you have to accept the same, and then only it will be reflected in your cash ledger. Okay, I think with this we'll wind up the session, because we have already taken up queries for 15 minutes. So Ankit, I think
Yes, ma'am.
we can wind up the session for the day.
Sure, ma'am. Team GST Corner is very thankful to Madam for presenting this webinar by taking time from their busy schedule and cover all the major issues and challenges in simplest way related to the webinar topic. We are also thankful to the participants for attending the webinar. Please do share your feedback related to webinar to GST Corner email ID. We have also upcoming webinar on 19 September on accounts and records under the GST Act. If anyone want to join GST subscription pack, please contact the admin. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and thanks to all the participants for attending this session. And thank you, Ankit, and thank you, GST Corner, for inviting me on your portal and giving me this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am.
It was
We
my
have
honor.
average
Thank you so
participant today is 175, ma'am, across.
Thank you so much. Thank you.